Welcome to November's edition of 4 and 4. My name is Kathy Halgren, Director of South St. Paul Public Library, and I'll be reviewing 4 new books on our browsing shelves in the library. Let's get started. My first book is The Bird Sisters by Rebecca Rasmussen. I love stories set in areas I've visited, and this story's setting is Spring Green, Wisconsin. Millie and Twiss are elderly sisters who are living in the family home they grew up in, barely eking out an existence, and they're known as the Bird Sisters since no-nonsense Twiss will attempt to doctor any bird that's brought her way, while Millie will act as hostess with her biscuits and jam. One such visit by a family in a minivan brings up memories, and a lot of the book goes back to 1942 when Millie and Twiss were just teenagers learning about such things as love, keeping up with the Joneses, their mother's disappointment in marriage, their wild, fearless cousin Bet from northern Minnesota, and their priest's bold decision to go after what he wants, since, in his words, God doesn't exist. It's a quick read, but the author is very insightful about life in the rural Midwest and really has a way with words that left me looking forward to her next novel. This new book is actually an old book, but it's experiencing a revival because of the new movie coming out in February featuring Daniel Radcliffe of Harry Potter fame. It's called The Woman in Black by Susan Hill, and it's written in the Gothic style featuring an old haunted house with a past in a remote part of England. The main character is Arthur Kipps, a young lawyer who is sent out to Eel Marsh House by his employer to settle the estate of a Mrs. Drablow, a widow who's lived alone for many years and has finally passed away, with no remorse on the part of the local residents. Arthur leaves London with the intent of going through all of her papers and ends up spending the night in her house, cut off from civilization by the tide. And I'm not telling you any more. If you haven't seen the trailer on the web for this movie, I urge you to do so. It's so creepy it made me want to read this book. For something completely different, I have John Grisham's The Litigators. David Sink is an overworked lawyer at a prestigious law firm that's finally had enough. One morning, as he rides up the elevator to the 93rd floor where his office resides, feeling more nauseous by the minute, he decides to junk it all, going back down 93 flights to freedom and a future. The immediate future consists of a stool at Abner's, a local bar. After drinking the day away, the bartender tosses him out in a cab and he asks to be driven to 418 Preston Avenue, an address he sees on the side of a bus. This is the address of Finley and Figgs, another law firm that's, well, not so prestigious. They call themselves a boutique firm, but Oscar Finley and Wally Figg are really ambulance chasers. Once David arrives, he asks for a job and actually makes himself useful, chasing away other lawyers at a car accident. It's a send-up of the legal profession that will have you hoping for the best for David and Rochelle, his new office manager, and just maybe Oscar and Wally too. Finally, Butterfly's Child by Angela Davis-Gardner is a creative take on the famous opera Madame Butterfly, which will be performed in April at the Ordway Center by the Minnesota Opera. To summarize briefly, in this opera, in the late 1800s, an American Navy lieutenant named Pinkerton falls for a beautiful Japanese geisha called Madame Butterfly. They marry, but Pinkerton has no intention of keeping his vows. He leaves with the Navy, and Butterfly waits 3 years for his return. Meanwhile, she has a little blonde son named Benji. When Pinkerton finally does return, he comes with his American wife. Butterfly commits suicide, opting for an honorable death rather than disgrace. Benji is left for his father to take back to his Illinois farm. And that's where this book really starts, as the author imagines his extraordinary life in the U.S. and beyond. That's all for this edition of 4 and 4. See you next month with 4 more titles in 4 minutes.